I'm a business person. I live in Delwood. I'm the former Minnesota State Auditor, and you're going to meet a new candidate, Cam, who's running for State Auditor. I'm also a former mayor in Eagan. So I used to live in Eagan, and I was a mayor there for many years. At that time, Dakota County was a sister city of Chengdu. Is that how you pronounce it? Chengdu, right? So I actually got to travel to China twice on diplomatic things to meet your elected officials over there, although a mayor in Chengdu is like a governor here, so I learned that, so not like our little mayors. But it was really fascinating to watch what was happening in China at the time. This was 15 years ago, how things were changing so dramatically. But we're excited to have you, getting involved in politics. As you know, this is a country where it matters. Everyone, your vote matters. If you get active, that matters. But if you don't, things just pass you by. So I'm glad you're doing this. And thanks for having me. So thanks for
Thank you. So let's start the program. So for a long time, the Chinese American has been left out in the policy making process. So sometimes by law passed without our knowledge. For example, the recent Minnesota data disaggregation law. So which does a lot of harm to our children, to our generation. That's why today we like to come here to learn something together. And here's the outline of today's schedule. So first we'll learn about this data disaggregation law, how the Minnesota Department of Education implement this law, and how the community, how we can work with the school board, the school district to voice our concern. But we cannot stop here because it's already a law. So we need to work together.
It is my honor to be with you today. Thank you so much for the invitation. I would like to introduce my dear husband. He and I have been married, he and I have been married 37 years. We have 3 adult children. 2 of them are certified public accountants. My husband's a certified public accountant, and I'm a certified public accountant. So sometimes our son, who is not a CPA, says, time out, let's stop talking shop, but we have a great family. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. I am running for Minnesota State Auditor. It's a very, very important position because the job is to provide accountability and transparency in how our tax dollars are used, how those government resources are used. I am a former audit manager at an international public accounting firm, KPMG, and as Jim alluded to, I served in the legislature with him as well from the beginning of 2011 through the beginning of 2015. While I served in the legislature, I chief authored 2 bills on government transparency. I learned something very important in that process. My bill was unanimously passed in the House. That meant everybody voted for it. Almost unanimously passed in the Senate, and it was signed into law by the governor. What I learned is it doesn't matter what party you are with. People want to know how their money is being spent. And so I am excited about the opportunity to serve as Minnesota State Auditor with my background and experience as an auditor and as a CPA with an active license. I wanted to share something with you. Unlike Jeff, I do not have a degree in political science. In 2008, it actually was to this month, I woke up in the night with a terrible, terrible dream about our freedoms being taken away. It was such a compelling dream. It still gives me shivers, right? I'm thinking and talking about it right now. It was such a terrible dream that the first thing I did the following morning was to call the Republican Party of Minnesota and say, how could I help? What could I do? And I ended up volunteering hundreds of hours for that election. A year later, I made the commitment to run for Minnesota State Representative. I had never done anything like that before. I was a stay-home mom. Hardly anyone in my community knew about me. I probably would be exaggerating to say that 0.25% of the people from my house district knew my name. But I ran and I worked hard. Just like you worked hard on things. I worked hard. And I won. I won. And I had that opportunity to serve. The reason why I say that is I want to commend you. I want to encourage you. As Jeff was saying, be involved. When you care about these issues, get involved. You can even run for office. You can, and you can win, and you can succeed. I want to encourage you in this. The United States of America is such a wonderful place. It isn't a special group of people who make the laws and put them on us. We, as ordinary people, can run for office. We can have our voice heard. But the key is to make our voice heard. We need to be involved. When we have a bad dream about our freedoms being taken away, when we see that there's a law that is egregious and terrible, we need to speak up. And so I end by thanking you. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for making your voice heard. Thank you for reaching out to Jim and expressing your concern. That's what's so wonderful about it.
And thank you all for coming out today. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running, and then let you take your break. So I'm Jeff Johnson. I was born and raised in northern Minnesota, but my wife and I live in Plymouth now. We have for the last 20 or so years. We have 2 teenage boys, and I have spent most of my adult life actually in the private sector, working for companies. I've been self-employed for the last 18 years. And then a while back, I served in the Minnesota House of Representatives before Jim was there, and now I'm on the Hennepin County Board as a county commissioner along with my business. And I got into the governor's race over a year ago, and I got in for a really simple reason. It is to give Minnesotans more control over their own money and over their own property and over their own kids' education, over their own small businesses. Because I think that our government in Minnesota has really gotten somewhat arrogant, to be honest with you, kind of overbearing, and there are too many people in our government, especially our state agencies right now, who believe their job is to tell us all how to live our lives as opposed to serve us. And to me, the most important role of government is to serve the people who pay their salaries. So what I will wake up every single day to do as your governor is to change that culture, to change that attitude in government from that of controlling and directing people to actually serving them. And I am in a tough primary race right now. I'm the endorsed Republican candidate. Tim Pawlenty is running against me, and we have a primary in 3 weeks, I believe it is, 3 weeks and a couple days. You can actually vote now. We can early vote in Minnesota, so you can go right to City Hall and do that. And I just tell people the biggest differences between Tim and me. Tim has been governor before, and he's a friend of mine, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of big changes from Tim. You'll kind of see more of the same, maybe tinker around the edges a little bit. I'm going in there to make some very significant changes in government and to change that arrogant, overbearing attitude that we have in a lot of our state agencies. So with that, I would love your support. I would love your help. We've got some material that we'll leave here for you, and I want to thank you all for coming out. I'll be around for a while so we can talk. Thank you.
It's not easy lots of times, lots of people. And it's fun to do this stuff. It's not hard. You know, door knocking is not hard. Lit dropping is not hard. Fundraising is not hard. You can do phone banking for Johnson. I've done phone banking for Jeff. I'm telling you that it works. You know, and I keep thinking, well, what can I do to help train people to do stuff? If you look at my Facebook, you'll see that I've been involved in a lot of these lawsuits and stuff. We've been going after these constitutional officers, you know, going after the Secretary of State, going after the Attorney General, you know, going after Steve Simons. Also, sometimes you'll see me as a speaker kind of paired up against Steve Simons. So I get invited as the fair and balanced guy on a lot of these Democrat events. So these guys recognize me and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. It's really easy. If you guys are really interested in doing a boot camp, you've got, we've been winning those cases. You know, for example, somebody goes to a polling location and is wearing a Tea Party shirt. You know, how do you win? How do you change the needle on that?
because sooner or later, you're going to win. You're going to win. What did I do? Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So, what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to introduce two more very special people. These guys are running for the Minnesota House of Representatives. The first one, Randy, I'm going to bring you up here. Randy and I have offices next to each other. Randy is running for re-election. He is a state representative. Some of you here live in his district, and I will tell you one thing. I'm going to tell you one thing about Randy. He is an outstanding state representative. If he is your representative, you are truly blessed because he's doing an amazing job in St. Paul.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Just real briefly, a little bit about me. I actually live about 1.5 miles north of, some of you know where Chippewa Middle School is. Okay, I live about 4 blocks up Hodgson on that spot. So this is really close for me. And as Jim mentioned, I did get elected with him the last go around fall of 2016. Jim made a real important point when he was going through all of the various forms of our government. He talked about the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial. And then he said there was that one fourth one. And he said upon it twice, the people. And the people make the difference. That's what's so beautiful about our country. It's democracy in action. And every single one of us counts towards determining where our country is going to go, where our community is going to go, where our state is going to go. And in the election that I went through in fall of 2016, we had about 40,000 people vote. The difference between the two candidates was 125 votes. It was 0.55%. So when Jim mentions the people, he's right. 125 people made the difference for me to be able to represent our community here in Shoreview and Arden Hills and Downsview. It makes a big difference. He also said that those people who get involved and show up, they're the ones that make a difference. Each one of you has made a difference simply by being here today. And the more that you can continue this overall effort, you will make a difference, you will have an impact, and most likely you will get the results, or at least close to the results that you so desire. A number of you came to the state office building last spring. I know I met with a number of you. Charlene, I want to say, I think Tiffany was there. I don't remember everybody, but there was a number of you. And, we applauded you. I know Jim met with him as well, and probably a number of others. And it was a good first, push to say, hey, this is really, what the legislature did in 2016 is really not going to meet our needs. In fact, we think it's detrimental to what we want to accomplish. And I said, you know what? This is something that we should be taking a look at. And I applaud you. You continue to move forward on this whole effort. I think you will have an opportunity for success. And I'm going to challenge each of you to say, reach out to those in your community. But I would also say, reach out to those that are not in your community that also would maybe share your concerns on this segregation. Does that make sense? The more people that you can bring in on this message, the better off you will be in terms of influencing your legislators and your senators to make some changes. I want to thank, I'm going to say Charlene, but I'm not sure who got it, but I saw some of the documentation that you sent out. And there was a letter, I want to say, from folks in Minnetonka, March 2018. I read about that. And that was really helpful for me to kind of understand what you were grasping with. And it was also beneficial to see that this concern is being voiced in other states across the nation. That adds credence to everything that you are trying to get accomplished. And so, when you're doing all of your efforts and you're educating and understanding further of what is going on nationally regarding this whole effort, that really benefits your cause and moves things forward. So I applaud you. I'm not going to take up any more time because we're going to get to Robert, but thank you for the opportunity.
The library is closing. Yeah.
大家好，我是 Doug Wardlow. It's so good to be with you all. So yeah, I am a little bit familiar with the Chinese culture and language. I spent some time at Beijing University, actually studied Mandarin there for a little while, and I studied Chinese law there as well. But I'm running for Attorney General of Minnesota, and this is such an important office. The Office of the Attorney General is the top law enforcement office in the state, the top legal officer in the state, represents the state in all lawsuits wherever the state interests are involved and handles all regulatory lawsuits as well. So whenever an agency or a commission, something like that, is suing somebody or enforcing a rule, the Attorney General is the one that does that, goes into court and provides that representation. So it's an enormously powerful office, and it's been in the hands of the Democrats for 48 years. And frankly, that's too long for any single party to hold such an important office. We need balance. So I'm running for Attorney General because we need to enforce our laws. You might have heard about the welfare fraud situation we have in Minnesota with respect to child care subsidy payments. So we have a situation where tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars are being defrauded from the state by daycare centers in the Somali community. And some of that money is going overseas, and some of it is ending up in the hands of terrorists. And that's because our Attorney General, who is the only statewide official who actually has the power to enforce, to prosecute welfare fraud, has not been doing her job. Hasn't been prosecuting welfare fraud. That's because the Attorney General's office has been too busy playing political games, suing President Trump. They brought lawsuits against the president for on the travel ban. You've probably heard about that, which was recently upheld by the Supreme Court, so the president was vindicated on that one. And they also sued the president to prevent him from putting a question on the census asking about citizenship. A completely baseless and political lawsuit. So we shouldn't be doing that with the Attorney General's office. What we should be doing is enforcing the law, prosecuting welfare fraud, giving backup to our county attorneys, who are the frontline prosecutors in our state, to make sure that our families are safe, and just representing the state in all the important things that the Attorney General does, including a person on the other side, their vote is canceled out. And that disenfranchises us and dilutes our vote. So it's very important that we enforce our election laws. So it's a very important office, and we need to take this office back if we're going to get our state back on the path of liberty, back on the path of prosperity, and we can do that, and we're going to do it this year. And just very briefly, because I know that I was in a parade in New Ulm, and that's why I'm a bit late. So we drove up here just as fast as we possibly could to join you all, and thank you so much for being here and for sticking around and waiting to hear me speak. I really appreciate you all being here. But just very briefly, the office is so important because we need to stand up for the rule of law, and we cannot have Keith Ellison, the leading Democrat contender, in this office. He's a very, very far-left socialist, and whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I think we can all agree that socialism is not good and doesn't work. And we don't want to bring those kinds of ideas into government here in Minnesota, so we need to stop Keith Ellison. We don't want somebody that doesn't believe in borders, somebody that has associations with Louis Farrakhan, who's a known anti-Semite. We don't want someone like that in the top law enforcement office in the state. So that's why it's so important that we all get involved, and I understand you're all doing an online fundraiser right now, and thank you so much for all of your support. Very, very grateful for that. It's so wonderful, and if you haven't donated online, please do so. But I've been watching the donations come in with the 88 cents on the end, and it's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. And we're going to win this race, and we're going to turn over this office into the hands of the Republican Party. And for the first time in 48 years, we're going to win it back for the cause of the rule of law. Because that's really what this is all about. It shouldn't be a political office. It's a partisan office, meaning that either a Democrat or a Republican holds it, but it shouldn't really be political. It's an office that's just about enforcing the laws, because if you don't enforce the laws, then they're not worth the paper they're printed on. So stand up and enforce the law, and put our state back on the path to liberty and to prosperity. Thank you all so much. Again, Doug Wardlow for Attorney General.